My name is Adam Graney. I'm with Crypto Cooperative. I'm a co-founder and leading the largest meetup group in Central Florida. I also work as a market maker and strategist for Ethics.market, which is a decentralized exchange out of San Francisco. So thank you so much for joining us today. We have Thiru, the CTO of DARTexon, joining us, and we're going to go through some blockchain questions that hopefully help clarify any questions you have about blockchain and specifically trust and cryptography and other nuances of blockchain technology. At the end of the webinar, we're going to do a Q&A, so feel free to stick around and you can ask Thiru whatever questions you have pertaining to the webinar and maybe outside of the webinar. So we're here to provide valuable information for the attendees, and we're also recording this webinar, so we'll be releasing the link after the webinar is done and we have it up on YouTube. So without further ado, Thiru is on. Do you want to introduce yourself, Thiru?
Thank you, Adam. It's my pleasure back again that we are connecting in the webinar series 2, session 2. And last time in session 1, we had a lot of participation and question and answers done. And thanks for participating again and for this wonderful blockchain related series of webinars. Yes, I'm Thiru back again. And we are all joined in one group just because we are all enthusiastic about the blockchain. So let us hope to help this blockchain session a wonderful session for all of you.
So let's get started with the first question. Why do you think trust deficit is rising? And I think this applies to many aspects of blockchain, public and private. So let us know your thoughts on this.
Yeah, trust, the basic and the main heart of any trade activities. Now, with the advancements in technologies and the solutions that has come forth in the digital world, a lot of people are able to gain better experiences. Now, as a customers, when we go to banks or online banking systems or online trading systems, and a lot of this give rich experiences, better service levels, and so on. Now, as we move towards this increasingly digital world, there is also the other side of it. We also care about the identities are gone on a theft, and the ransomware, malwares are all coming into picture, and so on, right? But when we actually look in the problem, it is not the technology alone is not a problem. It is when people, when they come in, they misuse the system, and there is a level of trust which is getting in a deficit mode. So unless otherwise we solve this problem, it is definitely going to be a bigger problem for the entire human race, because as more geographies, as more humans, they are becoming increasingly digital in every way of their life. So this needs to be fixed, and this is a serious problem and concern. Does it answer your question, Adam?
It does. I was wondering if you could speak to the difference between trust, maybe the manipulation, like you mentioned, malware, maybe bad actors coming in and manipulating the system, or maybe the system being built in the practitioners of that system that's being built abusing the user's trust. And I think a good example of that's Facebook and the banking system and the crash of 2008. Could you differentiate those two from a trust standpoint?
Yes. Now, when our social system start to evolve with a lot of interchange of or exchange of information, right? Let's say for Facebook. Facebook is not the custodian of a content. It is our content which is getting into or published to the viewers, right? We choose our whom to be viewed and so on. Similarly, any other social media and stuff like that. The social evolution has come in a way the information exchanges happens in a very big manner, which is like there is always a different set of systems. For example, let us take a trade system or let us say a social system. We think because of their high-speed activities and stuff, we think there are a lot of new age technologies are coming into picture to help us. But in actual, if you look at the technologies as such are old-fashioned technologies combined with new age technologies. And then we have new age devices, which is coming in, probably the drones, probably the smart devices like healthcare devices and stuff like that, right? Now, all of this, when we create data exchange and information, along with that, our network is also becoming broader and broader. Right now, with network and the data information coming in, it needs a lot of reconciliation exercises when we get for uh, bigger enterprises. For example, if it is a banking system, the data needs to be reconciled between the center bank, the receiver bank, and in between there is a lot of merchant banks, insurances, forexes, and so on and so forth. Now, these are contexts, these are touch points, I would call specifically as touch points. These are the areas where external interventions, intermediaries, or any other no malfunctions are penetrating into the system. Now, there are a lot of cyber laws, there are a lot of regulations, there are a lot of system compliances are brought into picture to build this higher level of securities on this touch point. But still, the open world is prone for more kind of dark side of activities as well, right? Yeah. Now, what it means is now with this all this reconciliation in the traditional technologies are being understood well by the third world person. It gives a lot of room for people to penetrate into the system. Now, with blockchain as a technology where it is distributed, decentralized, and it is able to give a single unified global ledger which is sitting across a lot of people, the reconciliation exercises are going to become a real time as well as immutable. So that is going to help us a lot in preventing such kind of activities in the future. And that is also going to help the social ecosystem to grow in a bigger way and better way. Hope that answers your question. Probably a long answer.
No. That's perfect. That's what I was looking for. So yeah, great stuff. So moving on to question 2, how is blockchain redefining trust?
The trust is actually should be thought about between the management, the consumer, and the way the digital ecosystem is spreading. For example, the Uber or Ola or any of these sorts, initially it was thought of as a barrier, and they were trying to come into play as a demand orchestrators. Primarily, they support the demand of the user's needs. That is, I am going to get the service on time at the place I want. Now, the trust in the quality of service we are going to associate is when the large scale disruption happens, example, Facebook we represented, people start to misuse trust, or organizations start to misuse trust. That is what most likely the Cambridge Analytics is one of the examples. And now what happens? How do we redefine trust? Okay, we are saying people, intervention by the people are trying to create a misuse scenario. Now, if we redefine that, why don't technology take the stand? Why don't technology start to build a trust ecosystem? And that is where blockchain is coming into picture. Now, the way our single universal global ledger is going to sit in our devices, in our system, establishing a transparent data and ledger, it is going to define trust. It is going to provide a new meaning of how we exchange or transact with an organization. And it is going to help us to talk a totally a new language, like the way the Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, nobody knows who the other parties are. And so two different parties who have not met each other in the past, they just believe technology in the mechanism it lies like the proof of work or the miners and mining work and so on. They just believe and the system is able to sustain with this belief for a longer time. So there is a way to define trust using technology, and Bitcoin is one of the examples, and that is in the same context and the similar mechanism. Blockchain as a technology will redefine trust by the way of having transparent and distributed ledger sitting next to us for every transactions that we are going to make it in the increasingly digital world. Hope that answers, Adam.
Yes, it does. I think it's funny because the term that's been coined with Bitcoin is trustless. So it's funny how that's changed. But I mean, just what you described, it's basically having to rely on less people and rely on technology more because it seems like people haven't been doing a good job. So yeah, I think that answer's perfect. So moving on, I'd like to get into cryptography and how that's leveraged in the trust system. So maybe this is kind of like this will be two questions in one. How do you represent the notion of trust, and then how does cryptography play a role in that, or what is cryptography?
Sure, Adam. Let me throw up a simple slide to define how the notion of trust could be explained in a better way. So, hope you are able to see my screen. Um, this is exactly how a notion of trust has to be brought in. It is an equilibrium that has to be preserved between the consumers, the management, and the scale of disruptions. Now, we all know as the scale of disruptions increases, the management commitment increases, the trust as an equilibrium will keep shifting in upward direction. And initially, the trust will be very linear in nature, but as it grows, then it is going to be exponential, right? But the consumers who was going to have the liking on the system, they have their preferences. That is, their liking keeps changing as and when there is a differential notion between how management portrays their commitment, right? So there are a lot of influencing parameters in which management can portray their commitments, right? One is, let's say, if they have chosen a right technology. Say blockchain could be one technology which by ways of trustable and immutable behavior, the data is going to be helping us in a very transparent way, right? So that is one mechanism. The other few things which is already in existence with a lot of other ecosystems is compliances like HIPAA and the new regulations like GDPR or anything like that, right? So these are the positive influences. I put in these positive influences, my trust level is going to go up because consumers are going to prefer that way of doing it. So it's going to stand at that level. But there could be other negative influences which can go on, which is like management decisions, unfriendly interactions in a way that consumers don't like that interactions. These are some of the influences which is going to bring down the trust to a drastically lower level, right? So this preservation of equilibrium between the consumers and the management for a trust is what we call as a trust equilibrium, right? So let me tell a simple example of how cryptography is playing a vital role in this. Primarily, cryptography is nothing but a simple technique that is used in communications of data. It is when information is exchanged between one parties and other parties. It is the security that is provided is what a cryptography is. Let's take a simple walkthrough of this. Let's say Bob wants to take Alice for a coffee, and he uses his phone and he chats with Alice asking, "Are you, shall we go for a coffee?" Now, the chat information, so what we are talking about, it goes via the internet. There is a lot of happening in the internet in terms of IP address, security handling like TCP protocols and stuff like that. And Alex receives the message. So when this message gets into this internet zone, there is a lot of potential. Somebody can intervene into the system. Like let's say Sarah is intervening into the system, and she can go to a level of tampering this data or removing this data and replacing with a completely new text. Instead of asking, shall we go for a coffee, shall we not go for a coffee? It's also possible. Right? So this is this action of intervention is called eavesdropping or phishing. We could have seen or we could have received a lot of emails which contains an unwanted information. The moment we click it, all our bank details will get exposed to the third-party worlds. Now, in order to prevent this intervention, we used a secured pipe. This pipe, building this pipe is called, a mechanism is called the cryptography. So what does a pipe do, the secured pipe do? Now, when Bob sends the message, we send the message uh, using a key mechanisms, and that key mechanisms takes this messages into the secured byte. So when allies receive this message, the message is intact without any tampering. So the Sarah's intervention is not going to work it out. So let me throw one simple analogy for it, and let me also show a simple demo of what this is. Hope a couple of us who are participants in this call might have gone to a bank lockers, right? This is one of the locker image which I've taken it from the web. So this is similar way which Swiss Bank also works or any other bank, right? Now, if you go to a bank locker, you will see one key is given to the customers, the one key is taken by the banker, right? Now, let's say this whole rack is one secured environment. This is what we call it as a pipe, secured pipe, right? Now, the banker will have one key which will work for almost all the racks, all the self in this rack, right? Now, the other key which is given to us is called the private key, which is given to individual customers. And this particular locker will open only when this key and this key are inserted at the same time and opened at the same time. This is a classical analogy of how a public key and a private key work. This is called the public because the banker has only one key which will work for the entire rack. This is called private because this is very individual to you and every individual will have their own key, right? So this is an analogy of this public key and private key. Let me show a quick demo on how this works. This is in our example. When Bob is going to send a message, he is going to use an encrypted key. And let's call that private key or a public key for this moment. Now, using this key, this is sent into the communication channel, which is the internet. It becomes so secure because the message is encrypted using this key. I'll show about what an encryption is in a simple demo in the next demo. When Alice receives this message, she will not be able to open this message without the second key, which is a private key, which she is having. Now, these two keys needs to work together in order for the message to go in very secure, so that the third party intervention is not going to happen. Let me show this demo. This is a demo of what I'm talking about. I have, this is a section which is going to provide us two keys. One key is called public, the other key is called private. So let us generate the key. Now, this is a simple interpretation of a digital key. We have 191 and 65. So let us call the 191 as a public key. It's a notion of a public key, but and the 65 is a notion of a private key. And let's type a message. This is session 2 of the webinar series. Now, I have two keys and I have a message. Let me take one of the keys, that is 191, and let me encode this message. This is what you got. Okay, since it is so big, probably I'll try to shrink this message until encode this. Now we have public key. We use that to encrypt the message, and we encoded the whole message. I want to decode this message so that I get my original message back. So let us start to give some random keys. Let's say I'll let me do 3 decode. So I'm not be able to see the message what I have used, but rather if I use the private key, like the bank example, which is a key which works just for me, and decode the message, you could see I'm Thiru is back, right? So the combination of public key and the private key encodes the message using one of the keys, which is public in this situation, and we can decode the message using decryption key. And when we use this key and decode, our message will be back to original, right? So this is the whole phenomena which happens in this tunnel. In this example, we were talking about this encryption and decryptions happen in this way. Adam, I hope that answers the question about how cryptography works. I thought this demo is quite a simple and meaningful way to explain to all the audience. And I hope the trust equilibrium and the cryptography explanation is, self-explanatory in the way I communicated, and it is giving grasp of what it is. Right? I hope that answers.
Yeah, that did a great job of covering it. Where did you get that UI that you used, where you were typing in the different public and private keys with it, and it distributed the random number? Where'd you find that? That's a cool resource.
Yes, we developed it, and it is in my local mission, and that we are using it for any basic users. We give that as an explanation because that gives an easy way to imagine how the keys are going to work in the digital world.
Yes, it does. It's a perfect example. I haven't seen one like that, so that's why I was like, oh man, that's a really good resource. So that's cool that you built that. I could see you using that a lot. So moving right along, so what is cryptocurrency, and how do they use cryptography when moving cryptocurrency and crypto assets around?
I'm sorry, I was talking on a mute, and probably I'll just go back again. Yeah, cryptocurrency is a digital currency which uses the same cryptography technique which you are using before. And that technique actually used to regulate and generate the items. In Ethereum world and in Bitcoin world, we call that as Bitcoin Cash. But it otherwise is any kind of tokens that we generate, which is otherwise called altcoins, right? A Bitcoin and all other coins are called altcoins. Now, this is what the cryptocurrencies are. Now, how does a cryptocurrency be defined? This is nothing but their means of carrying out transactions digitally. A classical example is Bitcoin. Two different parties, they don't know each other, and they have something called digital wallet, and they exchange what they have in their digital wallet. So there is a means of transactions that is one way to define a digital asset. Now, the second thing is they are independent from formal banking system. Uh, the exchange in a cryptocurrency world is independent, but there are a lot of countries who have actually formalized their regulations. Their central banks have approved to exchange the cryptocurrencies with the actual currencies. For example, dollar can be exchanged. There are a couple of other countries which is also allowing to exchange. They are independent because they are not governed by the rules of central banks, but they can also be used for exchanges. So they have a digital wallet. A wallet is nothing but a simple form of a contract which says what kind of transactions I had, how much money it has been exchanged between party A and party B. And when they do exchange this contract, they use the two things which we spoke earlier. That is the private key and the public key. Uh, I'm just checking about the voice. One second, sorry. Uh, Adam, I hope I'm audible now, right? Yes, these two keys are used, the private keys and the public keys. This is what we discussed in our encryption before. How these two keys are used. Let us say similar example what we used in the past. Bob wants to transfer the money to Alice. In the old example, we used message. So we were talking about encryption of the message. So that encryption is done using the key. Now in this case, we are going to use the same kind of keys. When Bob sends these transactions, he encrypts using this cryptographic technique to use his keys and then sends the wallet to the internet, which is the network, which is the Bitcoin network, let us assume. Now, in the network, the transaction is further encrypted using the public keys. And this is what will be then taken to all the miners, and then it will then move to Alice. So the same technique of whatever the cryptography we were using between private keys and public keys, the same technique is used in every kind of a digital asset transactions, and that gives the safer way of exchanging the digital information between two parties. Now, a cryptocurrency is, we speak only about Bitcoins, but there are a lot of other means of other tokens and cryptocurrencies which has come in, and each one have their own mechanisms. One is Bitcoin. There is it takes 10 minutes for a miner to mine a Bitcoin. But there are other currencies which they show differences by means of faster transactions, by means of creating more coins and stuff like that. So there are, at least in the last Googling information I have got, there are at least close to more than 200 plus of coins which is available in the market now. There are a lot of currencies which are coming in. But as we move forward, there is much more of currencies are going to come forward as well.
Many more are going to come forward.
Yes.
So let's see here. I don't know if you want to, do you want to jump ahead and maybe go over to the private sector and speak to how banks might be implementing blockchain? What your thoughts are on that?
Let me share the screen again. Probably a simple mechanism to show. When we talk about banks, actually, in the Bitcoin world, let me see the mute, whether I have unmute. Yes, unmuted. In the notion of banks, when A is sending a money to B, and B is sending a money to some other C, there are a lot of participants who are coming in as intermediaries. Now, what is intermediaries? When A sends sends the money from a sender bank, let's say Bank of India, the ledger of Bank of India is different. They own the centralized ledger, which is only for their bank. Now, when it is moved to a different bank, the B bank, which is called, let's say, an Indian bank, ICICI, that is maintaining a different, altogether different ledger, right? So these two ledgers are different. Now, in between, there is a forex, which is altogether different ledger, and probably in insurance and stuff like that, right? Now, what does it mean is they are inefficient. Why they are inefficient? Because every time the ledger is transacted, this transaction needs to be replicated from one bank ledger to other bank, and the other bank ledger to the third bank, and all the parties which are involved in this whole network needs to reconcile every now and then. And that's the reason we need a lot of auditors coming into picture, a lot of central banks governing the rules and stuff like that. Now, they become inefficient because there is a duplicate of records, duplicate of this transactions in Bank of America, duplication of the same a transaction in ICICI Bank, and so on. So it is inefficient because of duplication. Second, it is expensive. Why it is expensive is because every bank does their own transactions, they take the commission. So when I send $25 from Bank of America to Indian Bank, probably I'm going to get only $24.5. I'm not going to get that 5 cents or 50 cents at all. Now, this 50 cents could be looked at as a very low number for a simple transaction or a simple transaction. But if you look in from a percentage and the millions of transactions that happens around the globe, this is a huge number. And in one of the articles which I read, the trade activities which is happening and the commissions and other things which is happening in the trade activities, in a year, if blockchain kind of a technology is implemented, it could even go to a level of saving $20 billion in a year. Right. Why do we call that it is able to save that much of money, right? So because the blockchain as a system would replace all these individual ledgers, and they make it as a single universal ledger which sits in each of the spines. Now, individual ledgers will be gone, so it removes the vulnerability of hacking individual banks, and also it makes it very transparent and immutable to all the participants who are going to be in this network. Uh, that's how I see intermediaries are going to come in the banking system, Adam. Does it answer?
Yes, that does. I think that's very accurate. I think it's time to rebuild the system. I think it's been abused long enough. So I think there's a serious lack of trust in our current financing system and the legacy technology that it's built on, and all of the different intermediaries that are taking a slice of the pie. I know remittancy is a big issue, and I know Bitcoin has become a good resource for people that need to send money cross borders. So a lot of it has to do with these third parties that take a percentage of the money that's being transferred. And I know that there's the time lag, or the amount of time it takes to get money sent across borders is ridiculous in this day and age. So I see blockchain definitely helping out with those problems. So yeah, do we have some more time for do we have time for one more question, or do you want to go into Q&A?
Adam, I think we can go for one more question, and
Okay.
probably I can show one simple demo. Probably that would take 5 minutes to talk about how banking system is going to change for know your customers. And I
Okay.
think after then we can go for a Q&A.
Okay. Excellent. So you just want to go right into that demo?
Yeah, we can jump in. Yes, I'll do that.
Excellent.
This is an example of a bank, and this is not about a cryptocurrency, but this is about a consortium. The definition of consortium is about how the alliances and then a group of similar companies work together to form a consortium, and then they help each other in a very efficient and productive way, right? In this know your customer example, what we are going to show a demo is there are two banks, which is Dart Bank and the Metro Bank. And now, every time when we go to a bank, individual banks, we give our know your customer details. But by the way of building a consortium like this, and by the way of establishing a blockchain kind of network, now the customer can just go in and connect to one of the bank, and the subsequent banks can start to get the details from the other bank. So let me start with a simple example. Let's say I'm Thiru, and I'm coming to a bank, that bank, and that bank allows me to go for registration. So that bank is initiating the customer registration. So let's say I'm going with Adam's registration, and I'm not sure what the exact date of birth, but let me give you a much younger day for your date of birth. And it's an Indian number, Aadhaar number. So treat this equivalent to an SSN number. So let me go for this. Now, what I have done is a basic information about a customer is uh, is used by the bank, that bank, to initiate the registration. Now, there is one registration number which we call the KYC number is got initiated. Now, let me go as a customer. Now, since Adam registered, assuming that you received this login information from email or something like that, and this customer ID which is got initiated in the initial registration is available, and then Adam will start to upload the relevant information, like one being the passport. And these informations, what we are talking about, depends on the regulatory needs of the central bank. So in India, a couple of these are actually required. So I'm going with that. License information, the utility bill, and then Aadhaar. So Aadhaar is like an SSN number. Then we go and submit this information, these documents get successfully sent to Dart Bank. The Dart Bank can now go for an approval process of this. So it's Adam and the KYC number is 1035. Now the Dart Bank can view what the documents have been uploaded. Now, this document can also be verified using field agents where they could direct to their residents and then verify it. In India, this is one of the background check process where people, for the first time when you're registering in a bank, they come to your home, verify your actual addresses and stuff. And then let's assume that is done, then we go for an approval. So that bank approves and registers a customer with all the relevant information they want. Now, as we discussed in the beginning, let us say the consortium is all about not one registration, but the other bank which is going to use the information. So let's say Adam is also looking for uh, creating an account in Metro Bank. And what Metro Bank needs to do is it need not go to initiate the registration process altogether again, but rather it can go and pull out the information because they already have the KYC number from the customer, and it can request for this KYC number to the customer directly. Now, once the Metro Bank initiates this request, it comes to the customer, and the customer can either accept or reject this request from the Metro Bank. Let's say Adam approves this, and going back to the Metro Bank, now the bank would be able to see the entire details, including the social security number, the license numbers, and so on. Now, what we have done is we have used the blockchain as a service of IBM blockchain, and this blockchain actually displays the information as one of the block into its system. And let me quickly go into get into that to show how it is stored in the blockchain. Uh, so what it means is, while it is logging in, what it means is similar such kind of consortiums can be built. For example, it could be an air industry, or it could be any of any such industries which are very vital in terms of bringing transparencies and in terms of bringing efficiencies. They can just do that. Now, this is an I'm not going to explain in detail about what this IBM blockchain is, but to just show it is an entry which has been created for Adam with this social security number. What does it mean is, since it is logged in, it has been registered into a blockchain, it becomes immutable. I cannot find another mechanism to delete this from this blockchain. Now, that is how the whole process of know your customer is going to be very useful by means of going with a blockchain technique. And that way it is going to be more transparent and efficient for a lot of organization enterprises around the globe. Yep. Yes, Adam. This demo is done, and you have other question, Adam, or shall we go to users question?
Yeah, we can go right into Q&A. I was just wondering, actually, was that Hyperledger Fabric that you were using for IBM?
Yes. It is Hyperledger Fabric, and what I have used is a blockchain as a service, but eventually it could be as a local implementation as well. So at DARTexon, we have our own framework on how do we deploy it for not having a blockchain as a service, but our own customized blockchain frameworks, we could use it and deploy it for the customer.
Excellent. Yeah. So you can basically leverage the technology to connect multiple banks if you wanted to. And so multiple banks would have an infrastructure, or if just one bank wanted to have their own blockchain, you could do that also.
That's right. Absolutely right. Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. So I think we covered a lot of ground, and I think we can move right into Q&A from the audience. So I'll pass it over to Vijay, where he can bring in the audience Q&A.
Okay, I have this given to my WhatsApp. So a couple of questions I have it. Probably I'll start to answer one after the other. So in the when time pops up, probably you can let me know. So let me start with my first question. This is from Abdul. If one of the private or public key is missed, how can we recover the data, or the data might be lost, right? Uh, Abdul, it's a very valid question, and this is a similar phenomena. A lot of Bitcoin people also ask because they own the keys for their wallet. But the simple answer is the moment you lost your keys, uh, it is lost. It is you lost everything because whoever owns the key, they own the money, they own the wallet, and they own the right to be the custodian of that currency. So it is up to us to keep it very safe. It is like your ATM, the pin and the card, right? If you expose your pin to somebody and give the ATM card to somebody, then assume your bank balance gone to zero, right? There is no way it is going to be less than or more than zero, right? So it is similar to that. You cannot recover the data, but whoever owns the key, the data is not going to be damaged, but whoever owns the key, they have the authority to sign in using the key and they exchange the money. But there are other security means is also built along with this cryptography. But for now, uh, this is the standard with some of the Bitcoin and some of the currencies are taking. Hope that answers that question. Now, going for another question, this is from Mani. For confirming transactions, we need mining process. But why we need to increase the difficulty level in that by increasing zeros? Okay. This is in the context of my webinar session one, where we also discussed about what is mining and how difficulty codes are introduced with nuns and the difficulty levels and so on. But to answer the question, it is proof of work is one level of security that is being attached for the Bitcoin mining process. Now, every time when people feel that the security levels has to be they increase the difficulty level. To begin with, for example, in earlier days, we started with 9 digits of zeros, and then they went with 10 digits of zeros, and so on. So they kept increasing the difficulty levels in a way that it is the whole network is going to be secured for the participants of the network. Hope that answers your question. Is there a need to change? Sorry, this is a question again for money. Is there a need to change public address frequently? I am not quite sure what is the Adam. Would you want to add anything in this public address context of the question? Because there is one user who asked.
No, what was the question?
The question is there a need to change public address frequently?
So, I mean, according to thought leaders, including Andreas Antonopoulos, in order to remain as anonymous as possible, you should technically only use a public address once. So if you're if you're vigilant with your records and your keys, and you don't want people to be able to track you on the blockchain, then yes, for basically every interaction, you'd be forming a new public and private key. Now, this is obviously an arduous process, and it'd be easier to just move funds with Zcash or Monero or any one of the other more anonymous currencies. But yes, you can't actually change a public key. You would just create a new wallet, which I mean, people have dozens and dozens of wallets. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. Yeah, I hope that answers. And let me go for another question. There are other currencies providing how the multiple networks connecting in one system when one user using different cryptocurrencies nodes. Now the question is how the multiple networks are getting connected. So, see, each network has got its own unique, network IP addresses, network securities, network mechanisms. For example, the example I was talking about, the Hyperledger Fabric, it's a private network. There are other public networks, which is like Bitcoin, the Ethereum coins, and so on. So each network has defined its own mechanism of how the network is going to be. And in that network is where the people will be going and deploying their smart contracts or wallets and stuffs like that. Now, it varies on how the network is and how the currencies are brought about. Now, if in one of the currencies, what you are opting for, if we look into their mechanism of connecting, the way they connect, for example, in some of the Ethereum, which is like Ethereum wallet, which is like Malta, the meta task actually is acting as a wallet which can exchange the information between or data tokens between two people, right? Now that wallet ensures that it is connecting to the right network, and your digital signature ensures you are the right person to connect for the currencies. And using this combination of the wallet and the network phenomena, whether it is public and private, and the exchange information, the whole network and participants will be able to ensure that the security is up to the mark. Hope that answers your question. And there is one last question. Why wallet is no need for Hyperledger? Okay. Hyperledger is a private network, and it is actually not meant for tokens. We cannot create tokens using Hyperledger. So there is no mechanism of wallet, but Hyperledger brings in a different kind of security. They use something called channels, meaning if there are multiple peers, let us say peer one, peer two, peer three, or the participants of the network, you can create multiple channels, let's say channel one, channel two, and you can define your mechanism on who will be the participant of the channel. It is like peer one, peer two, combine or joining to channel one. It will be peer two and peer three joining to channel two, and so on. Now, so it is a blockchain technology with a different purpose, like to create something like an consortium or something for an individual bank, and hence it is not more a cryptocurrency way of doing things. So it doesn't have a token and it cannot work with wallets. Hope that answers that question. And in the interest of time, Adam, how are we doing on time? There are one or two few more questions are there, but in the interest of time, should we go take that or?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground today. We got basically an hour full of content. So yeah, I think that covers it for today.
Okay. Yeah. With this session, we hope that we are able to give a good, as Adam was talking at the beginning, we hope we gave a good coverage about how cryptography is used in cryptocurrency world, and how trust is actually built using technology way of defining a trust rather than human way of defining a trust. And with the trust equilibrium kept at the brink, always at the top, and with all the digital, increasingly digital world, which is going in for more of automation, together with this increasingly trustable environment, I hope it is going to give not just for our generation of people, but for future generation of the people, a very trustable and increasingly automated solutions that the world can rely on. And blockchain is one great phenomenon which sits right at the spot to define the trust and to get in the right notion of how economy should spin in. And that gives, I hope this is an answer which we were trying to convey to you in the whole of the session, and hope that is rightfully conveyed to you. And thanks for all the participants to taking patience and participating. It is a very pleasurable moment that we have this interactive session. And Adam, thank you for all the questions. And these questions are means immense to a lot of audiences who have a lot of basic level of questions. This would have given them a lot of clarity about on those subjects. And thank you for your time as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure is all mine. I appreciate it. So yeah, till next time, I guess next weekend, we'll see you again.
Yes. Thank
Great.
you. Bye, viewers.
Have a good weekend.